Hey, brother.
Hey, what's up, man? I see we're live. I like it.
We are live. I got new glasses. Can you tell? New
I
readers.
know. I like those. Look good, man. Look good. I got the readers still.
Trying to be a distinguised savage.
Yes, you look like a sable gentleman, the silver fox.
That's yeah. Guys and gals out there, Warrior Nation, if you listen to the podcast to come, I have the honor and privilege of sitting down once again with my good friend, Mr. Walt Settlemyre. Is it Meyer or Meir?
Meyer.
Meyer.
Yeah, yeah. I'll answer either
And
one.
we are going to be kind of taking you on a rambling tour. I was recently on Walt's show, the Distinguished Savage podcast, one of
Yes,
my favorites,
sir.
by the way.
Yes, sir.
Um, and let me qualify that. I think the reason I like your show, and you and I talked about this a little bit at the end of yours, is it touches on everyday carry, it touches
Mhm.
on preparedness, it touches on uh, the warfighter mindset, the preparedness mindset, the winning mindset. It talks about fitness and combatives and shooting. So it's kind of whereas the American Warrior Show is kind of self defense specific, and that might take you down roads that discuss the as weapons and combatives and physical safety and yada yada
Sure.
yada. Yours, you can kind of go anywhere with yours. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to be able to do that. And I've taken some detours along the way because I just meet interesting people sometimes. And then there's some things that kind of coalesce with my former EMS background, or well, I mean, I'm not really EMS anymore now. I'm in the hospital, but
Mhm.
it kind of coalesce with different ideas. And man, I meet somebody interesting. I'm like, man, this person's got a story. I got to bring them on.
Speaking of that, man, I think, like I told you in the beginning, I was gonna do your bio, but why don't you just tell the audience out there, and I'll give you full billing here. Just tell us about yourself. What's your story that got you where you are now? Well,
And then I've got a quirky story actually. I started out a young man in Western North Carolina. My mom said I played Army till I grew up and joined the Army. Army 4 years, 11 Bravo, and a comms guy. I was also a 36 kilo secondary MOS, 25th Infantry Division, which was really cool. Hawaii, which is odd because I put myself on levy for Korea, and they're like, "Oh, you got Hawaii," and vice versa for guys who put in for Hawaii. But really good time with 25th ID. Got to go through light fighters, got to learn all this stuff. Now, this is all prior GWAT, obviously. Got out, knocked around, started different jobs and hated them. Like I'd do something for a year, started a career for a year here and there. I worked as a stockbroker for a year, hated it. Worked in like restaurant management for a while, hated that after about a year. Free food was good. But then I got into high end men's retail, worked on Rodeo Drive actually for a little bit
nice.
for Bernini's and for Ixies, which I don't think is around anymore. But that's where I kind of got my thing for clothing, really. And that was sort of a jumping off point. Went to school, different places, burned up my GI Bill with out of state tuition for a while. Never got a degree, but got 300 hours of college.
Oh my
And then I
God.
kind of found my niche around 30. I was sort of aimless at the time. And I was like, what did I love doing the most? And it was honestly being in service of people. Like I was a volunteer firefighter when I was in high school, right? 16, 17, 18. And I was like, man, that was when I really felt like I did something greater than myself, which I really liked. And that kind of led me like, well, I'm getting a fire service. So really just all in fire service, right? So I got in the fire service, was volunteer, then paid. That led me down to EMS quite actually, because everything I read in Firehouse Magazine was like, if you get your paramedic, you got a way better chance of getting a big city fire job. And I'm like, that's what I got to do. And I've really found my niche with EMS. I'd never done anything medical before that. We didn't even have. I'm trying to remember what the medical thing was in the Army. What besides just the actual MOS, it was. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but we didn't have that. We just had basic first aid. I got
Mhm.
an EMS, and the more I did EMS, the more I liked that. And I found a niche with that because I got to do stuff. There's no fires to put out anymore. I mean, there's
Right.
5% of fires, fire suppression. And as much as I love the physicality of the fire job and that sort of paramilitary esque, organizational style of
Mhm.
firefighting, I just got to do more in EMS. And so I went from EMT to intermediate, from EMT intermediate, and then basic. And that was really no, to paramedic, Jesus. But paramedic, full autonomy, and
Yeah.
that really suited my personality style. I found an EMS system that had a special operations team, which was here in North Carolina at the time. I was living back here then. And man, I really loved that. Got my then North Carolina Rescue 1 and 2, going into all the technical rescue aspects, trench, confined space, and all the specialties. And that was really cool. Then I got to go to Contoms, got on the tactical team, went to Contoms, which was an incredible course.
What's that?
Contoms is counter narcotics and terrorism operational medic.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
incredible course. It's taught down at FLETC in Georgia by the DC Park Police. Incredible. 6 days, I think it's 7 days now. Just incredible course. Medicine over the barricade. You do a 24-hour operational period where you're just running and gunning. It's really cool. And it was really cool to work with like different medics, different law enforcement, military. A lot of people get to go through it. It was really cool. And that just set me on a path of that was fascinating. Then went out to Austin Trap. I wanted a bigger system, right? Gas and EMS was great, and it's a great system still. It's really interesting to see how it's grown. But I wanted a big system. I wanted to go to the big leagues, right? So I went to Austin Travis County because I knew they had a special operations team that did both tactical and rescue. And went out there, got the job. Was out there for 23 years. Retired from there. I was on the special operations rescue team for. Of the 23 years there, I did 19 and a half on the Special Operations Rescue Team because nobody ever leaves tactical there. But man, just got to do some incredible progressive medicine that a lot of EMS systems don't get to do, like finger thoracotomies. We had ultrasounds in all the trucks, which is a rarity.
Wow.
Some guys could even do field amputations if you went through some of the training, but just a really incredible, and a big budget, big system. But my love was always sort of that military sort of background that I had. And so those last like 10 years, just really getting back into teaching TCCC, just getting back on shooting more often, all that kind of thing. And then that kind of led me into the last 3 years of getting into executive protection. So I work for a company out of South Carolina right now, KDI Protective Services, who've been incredibly good to me, and just get to do some incredible training there. So, and now these days, I've retired from EMS, retired from Austin, and in the interim of all that, let me back up for a second. In the interim of all that, tore the labrum in my right shoulder. So it's either jiu-jitsu or swift water. I'm not sure which, right? But really got into building out a defensive tactics program for Austin Travis County because what we had before, I didn't feel like was adequate for what we needed, right? And one of the things I really appreciate about what I got to do at Austin was I feel like I left it better than I found it in a lot of ways, and that's important to me, and it's just my weird quirkiness. But I got to build out the defensive tactics program, and so our union, actually, because we're a civil service department, paid for our training to the tune of about 25 grand, right? Because I couldn't get the department to fund it, but the union was all in because it's all boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. So it gave me a transition from special operations because man, that every 6 months swim for the PT test was killing my shoulder. I'm like, I'm either going to like just try to swim all the time and just ruin this shoulder till I have to have surgery, or am I going to rehab this? And so I got off the team, went back to just field operations, medic on the truck, which is still pretty cool, right? In a lot of ways. And just worked on the defensive tactics program, built that out. So then, all that kind of transversed into working for KDI, got in with them, trained, did all their workup for that. And so I work for KDI, I teach, and I work part-time now as a paramedic in an ER here in Western North Carolina, which has been eye-opening and incredible learning experience. I'm working on learning suturing now. So, but I have a really pretty wide scope of practice in the ER as well, which is really interesting because it's stuff I've never done, lab values, antibiotics, splinting with orthoglass, stuff I never did as a paramedic before. So it's been a real learning experience. I'm, as you and I have talked about before, I'm busier now that I'm retired than I ever was when I was working full time on a truck. But I think that brings us pretty much up to date.
Yeah, it does. Wow, there's so many things I want to talk about now. Let's go back to, you mentioned trenching. Did you ever do, when you were on the special operations team, whether it's in North Carolina or Texas, and do any trenching and rescue?
Yeah, actually, I ran a couple of trench rescues, and that's a really dangerous piece of technical work,
Yeah.
right? Especially at the technician level, because you're putting in trench pads, you're getting down there, you're digging. I mean, usually it's going to be a recovery. Let's be honest.
I was
Unless
going to say,
just
are you
partially
ever
covered.
pull anybody alive out of it?
Yeah, you're working on shoring, and the same with structural collapse. I got to go to Texas Task Force One at A&M and train with those guys, and man, just the amount of trenching and shoring that you do, and just building out shoring, and making sure a structure, a collapsed structure is safe to actually go in and effect rescues. Absolutely phenomenal. They've got train cars there. They've got buildings. They've got everything there. It's absolutely incredible experience. We got to do 7 days there for, yeah. And it was really incredible. And I was really lucky with Austin in that I was already a Swiftwater Rescue Tech 1 and 2. But when I got there, I got to do Swiftwater Boat Operator, which we did down in the bay near Galveston. Right. So we trained with all the FEMA guys and mostly Texas Task Force One. Mm-hmm. So you're running Zodiacs and.
Okay. Before we get into the Swiftwater, I want to back up. So
yeah.
Trenching, I think your point is right. Because I run a construction company and it's something we do some of that and making sure we do it in accordance with everything that's safe. I want to keep my guys safe. But because I think a lot of people don't know when that collapses, it's probably going to be a recovery. By the time you guys get on scene, you're pulling a body out. You're not pulling a living, breathing human being. That guy's already crushed to death.
Yeah.
But what about because you mentioned emergency amputations was one of the things that were you trained with it or somebody else?
I didn't get to, so they were rigging that in right as my last year or so there. And I knew I was close to retirement. I didn't want to take a slot from somebody who would be there for longer than I was. And I was really concentrating on the DT stuff and building that program out.
Because with the structural collapse, the reason I'm bringing it up, because with structural collapse, now there is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. You got an ankle pin, you got an arm pin. This person's survivability is going down rapidly, but they're still, if you get that, you're not going to get the structure off them. And I saw that the walkway that collapsed at the Hyatt Regency back in the late 80s or whenever it was. Yep. And there was 100 and something people killed. I mean, it's if you haven't heard of it, please go look it up. It's unimaginable. But there was a lot of people that they were coming in and doctors were having to perform those amputations to get those people to the hospital. And I'm glad that they're pushing some of that training down to the lower level guy. Now, I would not want my first one, Rich. God bless, brother. Oh no. Yeah. I'd rather have an ER doctor here who does this kind of stuff. But I do think that the need is there. Another one for emergency amputations was when that some college, I think in Oklahoma, and they would build those giant bonfires. Mm-hmm. And they were like made out of like telephone poles. So when it fell, man, it killed dozens of people and trapped. And they had a lot of emergency amputations there. But that is definitely a skill set.
It is, and we had a couple of guys so we in Austin is very unique to EMS throughout the country. Right, it's a third service, it's EMS only. But we had a really good, at the time, great medical director, J.R. Pickett. He's a 19th group SF doc. And he really pushed our medicine to a progressive level. There's some EMS systems like, I can't believe you guys are doing that. But I mean, there's always parameters and there's a lot of oversight, a lot of training. And we were lucky at Austin to do cadaver labs, that kind of thing, right? So, which is huge, actually, to be able to work on an actual body, right? So you get a lot of training before you do that. But some of the guys, they would go through FPC, which is your flight paramedic certification, or CCP, which is your critical care paramedic. And then they would do this 40-hour class with JR. And again, I mean, this guy was on the cutting edge and still is, actually. He left Austin and went to Utah to teach now. But, he's on the cutting edge of everything that's coming out of the military, especially with the SOCM docs. And so it was an incredible opportunity. Again, so I had about a year left. It's hard to take a slot from somebody. I knew my pops was getting a little worse and I was going to go home. And that was the impetus. I ended up buying time and leaving a year early to take care of Dad before he passed. So that I didn't want to take a slot from somebody who's like spent the money on the FPC or their critical care and then done the 40 hours, and I'm taking a slot from them, so.
Welcome a couple of folks to the show. Cruz is on. John Marquez is on. How you doing, sir? Johnny King is on. Doug is on up in Ohio. He is coin number 78. Tony is
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Says,
Hi.
good afternoon, folks. Thanks for being on. Please like and hit that share button. We're just getting going. So we got your background out of the way. And I think a lot of people who are just lay people to the EMS side, they would hear you say DT. Is he talking about defensive tactics?
I am talking about.
I thought they were
defensive
medical
tactics.
providers. What is that? So if you could elaborate, what is DT's role in providing those emergency medical services?
Absolutely. When I first started putting together a DT program, the one we had, there were wrist locks and there was a lot of compliance, pain compliance, but it was taught, in my opinion, a little more cursory. It was like, you got a compliant person you're training with, and and what do we do as a, well, if something's not working, when I'm not in training, what I do, you're going to go harder, right? You could break a wrist.
Yeah.
You're just trying to control somebody. That's a very specific skill set, and everything in defensive tactics has a time and a place, right? But I started looking at other things outside of what EMS was already doing, right? And so I started building out, because I'd already trained with Craig, with ECQC, trained with Cecil, trained with Cliff, the ShivWorks Collective we talked about in the past. Mm-hmm. And so I started building out some different pieces. And I was always a jiu-jitsu guy. I trained at 10th Planet Austin, which is an incredible place to train. And I started bringing these other pieces, but also like learning more about de-escalation, because one of the big, if I could teach one thing in EMS for DT, it'd be like, don't get in the fight in the first place. And you win 100% of the fights you don't get in. And, first responders aren't medical, they're medical providers, but they're not really authority figures, but kind of authority figures. Mm-hmm. And you got some bro dudes in that, like any type A personality type industry, where, those guys are going to push that limit a little bit. So it's a lot of like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Mm-hmm. But I put together a program that was kind of, well, it was, and I give Craig full credit, because Andre Thompson was one of my partners there in Austin. He and I both, he went through EWO, ECQC, I did ECQC, and we started building out back of the ambulance stuff in that novel entangled environment that Craig talks about, but in an ambulance, right? How to control this combative patient on the stretcher, but someone, even where like a 100-pound female, smaller in stature, could control that person, and much like what Craig did in the early days, we just got in the back of an ambulance with headgear and MMA gloves and tried to figure out what worked and what didn't work. Right. We found a lot of Craig's coursework came across, and we sent him videos and asked his plans and ideas. That was really the impetus. I added in, got to go to GST level 1, which I'm back and forth on, because they've got a medical component now. It's a whole other conversation. We brought in some GST, but honestly, then training with Cecil.
Is that the Gracie survival?
Yeah, Gracie survival tactics for law enforcement. We just did the level 1, because level 2 gets a lot more into 2-person and cuffing, and that wasn't really what we needed. But we also brought in some spear from Tony Blauer, which is really interesting stuff. It's a lot of people don't like it. Some people love it. It's great for what it is just like weathering that initial storm to kind of get yourself organized in an attack and be able to push somebody off. Right. Tony's a quirky character in a lot of ways, but that's a whole other conversation. That's weird. But we brought Spear in, we brought in GST. I also brought in John Burke in his P4 program. He was Hoist Gracie's first black belt. Really interesting guy. And that was some good stuff.
We've had Tony. I think we've had all these people on the show.
Yeah, I think you have as well.
From
right?
Craig Douglas to Tony Blair to John Burke. Yeah.
Cecil several times.
Of course.
But honestly, it was training with Cecil that, because we do a lot of the, because a lot of us are jiu-jitsu guys. There was a lot of jiu-jitsu aspect in there. Mm-hmm. Jiu-jitsu is tough to teach in one day, and you're going to be effective. That takes time on task. That's reps. Drillers are killers. Yeah. What I started seeing after training with Cecil is I honestly adopted a lot of his immediate action combatives and more of that stand-up Greco stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And started dropping some of a little bit of the, like, hey, how to get out of a mount situation, how to control somebody from side control. So I started like, it became a pedagogy, really, mm-hmm. whether it's the PowerPoint version of it, of all the different pieces that I've picked up. And again, I didn't come with any of this. I just stand on the shoulders of giants. Greg Williams and Brian Marin from Arcadia Cognerati. A lot of their stuff is in there. Chris Voss, some of his stuff's in there. I mean, I think I even quote you in the PowerPoint now, because I am always changing it, right? Even though I haven't taught it in probably about a year, I still continue to work on that PowerPoint, because if I come across new information, I want to make it better. Long and short of that but the physical portion really got pared down to some of Cecil's stuff, right? And and I tell, I give Cecil full credit. Like, there's so many in the bibliography of the actual course, right? I'm like, and this is where this guy came from. This is where you need to find more information on this. But his in-fight triage, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, fix your feet, fix your hips, fix your head.
Let me so people that are listening to this, what he's referring to is Cecil Birch put an in-fight triage, and I had him write an article. So if you want to find the details of all that, I highly encourage you to go to AmericanWarriorSociety.com. And Cecil Birch is the author, and you'll see his articles as he's written for the site, and definitely read that, because it's amazing. As well as we've had Brian and Greg from Arcadia Cognorati on the show multiple times. And they're kind of the burning bush when it comes to, a lot of the, I'm going to use a Steve Tarani word, which we've had on the pre-fence, the things before the fight, staying left of bang, to quote his course material kind of stuff.
Yeah. Human behavior pattern recognition and analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are the gold standard.
True. And that's another thing. I'm reading a book right now called If Anyone Builds It, and I may be butchering it, but the name is something like this: If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. And it's about artificial intelligence, super general intelligence. And it's a really fascinating book written by some AI geniuses. Like, we need to stop. This is going to be bad for everybody.
It's already getting dicey.
Yeah, but I bring it up because your point about pattern recognition and human behavior analysis is really two things. The way this book lines it out, it's like, let's distill intelligence down to something. It's prediction and steering. I see my environment and I predict a future state, and then I steer either an external organism or myself in and out of this environment. So again, that's what a lot of this is. Now, I think the harder thing is something that you kind of breezed by, and that is the de-escalation piece. Yeah. There's so many videos out now that the police are getting you need to be the de-escalator. You need to be the de-escalator. You need to be the de-escalator. So there was this one giant guy, I don't know if you saw the video, and he's screaming at these cops on the road, de-escalate, de-escalate.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah,
bro, what do you want me to do? Yeah. There's no fairy dust I got to sprinkle on it. If you're an unwilling participant in this communication, it's going to be hard for me to de-escalate this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, I agree completely. There are some people who are, if they're maybe a polyfarm overdose situation, they've got several things on board, or even just drunk, right? How many times have you had a drunk family member or friend, and you just can't reason with them, right? And they have one track, and that is going towards something violent, or just much more, they're going to lean more towards just something out of nowhere, right? And it's a lot of times it's violence, right? Because alcohol don't make you, it lets you. And same for drugs, same for someone who's
while we're waiting for Walt to find his way back on, I've never heard that phrase before. Alcohol don't make you, it lets you. Man, that is creepy. And so true. Johnny King says, I still visit old episodes with William April concerning this topic. Yeah, the loss of William April to our community is really, he's a hard guy to replace. Those old shows with him, man, that's all we got, and then of course you have, because he was part of the Shivworks Collective, you have those guys that are still out there teaching some of his thoughts. But that's fantastic, Johnny, to mention that. I need to go back and listen to some of those. Walt is re-entering the studio.
Yeah, I'm back.
There he is.
I don't know what happened. I was going to town. I said some really incredible things.
I'm sure you did. Damn it.
Yeah, no worries.
But what I said was, I'm going to steal something from you. Yeah. And I'm sure you stole it from somebody else, but that's all we do anymore.
Absolutely.
And that was alcohol don't make you, it lets you. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, dude. Credit to my nephew who said two amazing things that I wish I'd have said. That's one. And the other is keep your gratitude higher than your expectations. And I'm like, God, man, those two things I wish I said. Side note. But that being said, man, to your point, if I could teach one thing, it would be the de-escalation, the pre-contact indicators. A lot of, I've shamelessly picked up a lot of stuff from Craig's Managing Unknown Contacts. And, so much of that is just like not being in the fight in the first place, not letting pride or ego dictate your actions or strategies. I mean, you and I have certainly had a great conversation on that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think those are the biggest things, man. Not to me, I always jokingly refer to it when I teach is like that's the ninja sprinkle. Man, when you can not get in the fight, you can talk somebody out of a fight, especially the more amped up they are. And the stuff I've taken from Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, is like if their tone goes up.
Book. Let's plug that one real quick.
Incredible book, man. That guy is amazing. Yeah.
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, a former FBI hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
People have been telling me to read that book forever. And I'm like, and then I read it. And I'm like, oh, I get it.
Dude, phenomenal. Right. And one of the things that I've used a lot is I use his tactical empathy.
Yes.
I use his, as
Explain
he calls
that
it,
if you would, please, Walt.
Yes. So for me, tactical empathy, I always think of it in lines of like, I deal with people whose lives that I can't imagine. Right. I've got a nice place to live. I've got a nice vehicle. I have a job. I've got food in the refrigerator. I feel very fortunate in that, right? Granted, I built that life, but you run across homeless people who have, it's like Mad Max out there, especially when I was working in Austin, Travis County, like it is, I've seen homeless on homeless violence that, with some incredibly interesting improvised weapons. One is I show in my coursework actually for first responder defensive concepts. There's a deer antler with a serrated steak knife, duct taped to it. And I've got these little pictures of different things, and they're all on display at Medic 6, downtown Austin, because just weapons have taken off homeless people, all the way down to a rock and a sock, a bicycle chain with a little wooden handle on it, which I actually ran that call. And man, that bicycle chain, I saw an old one, got the burrs on it, just almost degloved the guy's arm. But the long and short of that is the tactical empathy aspect of it, because I'll get off track. It has to be the right kind of empathy. And, Brene Brown does a good job of talking about empathy versus sympathy. Because it's one thing to be, it sucks to be you, man. That's more the sympathy, but like the empathy is like, hey, man, I hear you, brother. I get that, man. But like, what can I do right now to make it better? Now, I talk a lot about you got to set boundaries. You can't give them the world, but like, hey, man, let me get you to the hospital. You won't be with the cops. Let me just take you in. I'll get you a sandwich. I'll get you something to drink. You'll get treatment, right? A lot of it's just that. It's just like being empathetic to their situation, even though like I can't imagine what it's like to be homeless. I mean, I can think what it might be like, but living that life day to day, it's got to be a rough road to hoe, man.
Yeah, I like your point about there are things that I can do. Like I can give you. I watched one recently where this woman was. She stole a cop car and they had her boxed in, and she had a gun to her head. I don't know if you've seen this one, but she's in the cop car with a gun to her head, right? And she's like, open this. She's in the Sally port. She had slipped her cuffs, got into the back seat, unlocked, and got the deputy's gun, and then climbed back in. Now she's going to steal the car, and she's wanting them to open the Sally port so she can get out. She's got a gun to her head, and open this door. It's like, I can't give you that, but is there something else I can give you? I understand you're having a bad day and all that kind of stuff. Give me a cigarette. Not a problem. Now they're like scrambling for a cigarette and all this stuff. So, giving them little wins and giving them a contained choice. Here's what I can do for you. I can do this. I can do this and this. Which would work better for you? And each one of those, I'm comfortable with the outcome. I did a show recently. This is something I used to do when I was a recruiter instructor. I did it on a podcast one time. I held up a playing card, but it was where you couldn't see what it was. I could see what it was. And I say, pick a suit of cards, and I walked them through, and I said, so you chose the whatever, and I turned it around. It was that card. And I do that in all of our communications classes, because at the end of it, you feel like, I got the card I wanted, man. Me and Rich are really connected. How did he know that that's what I wanted? He he must be able to read my personality. Now, I gave you what I wanted you to have, but it came across in a way where you thought you got what you wanted.
Yep.
And to me, and
Absolutely.
that's the tactical empathy part, right? It's like I'm using empathy as a tactic to achieve my overall strategic goal. Is that what you think of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point on the cigarette, man, this young lady came out as a EDP, so emotionally disturbed person. And it was right on the Capitol grounds, so it's the DPS, state troopers calling it in, and their thing is the Capitol. They just want this person off the property. She won't give me a name. She won't say anything. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, hey, and I try my jokes. I try, like, and I'm like, and occasionally I would chew some nicotine gum when I'm on shift because like I go to bed for 10 minutes. I got to get up and I got to be a little on point. So if I'm running cardiac arrest on someone's grandmother, and so I'm like, hey, if you tell me your name, I'll give you a piece of nicotine gum. And first word she said to me after about 10 minutes, she's like, really? I'm like, absolutely. Here it is. 2 milligrams, my friend. Goes,
Enjoy.
I'll give it to you first. I give it to her and she's like, oh, she tells me your name, right? And the troopers were like, oh man, that was some magic. That was some Jedi mind trick. I'm like, no, it's just a little win, man. It's just a little something, like and I will say now, along the lines of tactile empathy, one of the things I do talk about in my coursework is like, hey, when you're on your 18th or 19th call, in your 24-hour period, it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and you've got no rest. It is way harder to be empathetic. It is way hard. Your fuse is shorter. You're hungry. You're tired. You've heated up this one meal 3 times and you still haven't gotten to eat it. It gets harder then. It becomes more about discipline and just being in control of yourself, being in control of your emotions. And that's huge.
Amen.
But, but I said, like I could teach this course 1,000 times. There's still going to be days where something just goes wrong and I'm mad or something just happened or, something occurred that morning or, because, I think Brian and Greg talk about, most bad things don't happen after you've had a good workout and a shower, and you're feeling great. It's like usually, towards the end of a long day or something to that effect. And so I really liken that to that tactile empathy aspect as well. Sometimes it's just like taking that deep breath and going, all right, well, look, how can I get this person in the ambulance or how can I get this person to comply or how can I just even if you're just getting out of that situation, right? And to me, that's the tactical aspect of the tactical empathy part. What do you think?
Well, as you was talking, my brain was plowing through these events I've had, and I'm amazed at how often I talk to people, and this is from my wonderful wife, Miss Lisa, or friends, or cops, or whomever.
Yeah.
And they get emotional. That this guy, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, well, if your mission is to whip his ass, then just do it. I mean, it comes with a whole host of legal consequences potentially. It comes with some physical consequences, some financial consequences if you get sued. And what's your point? I'm like, what are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to achieve an educational beatdown, okay, I guess maybe you'll feel morally justified when it's over, but that's, to me, that has so many downsides. I would rather get my way without violence. I could do that if it goes there. You can too, easily. And we're going to talk about a situation you were in.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is the goal I'm trying to achieve? And which is why, as a defensive tactics instructor, when I went out on my own and started teaching a instructor trainer course back in the late 90s through the early 2000s, I called it subject restraint instructor trainer, because I never liked the term defensive tactics, because as a law enforcement officer, I'm ending in an arrest. As you, as a medical professional and provider, you have to get a patient outcome out of this. It's not just it's not just a brawl in the back of a ambulance. At the end of it, I need to get this person restrained. I need to get them where they need to go and get them the level of care that they need. I can't help the fact that that their insulin's dropped or they're having a psychotic episode. They don't need their ass kicked. They need help. Sometimes they do. Don't get me wrong. I was a bouncer for years. I worked in corrections. There's some people out there that need their ass kicked. Walt laughing. He knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm sure you get listening.
People, you need to hand them your business card.
Bingo. But what I'm talking about is in a professional setting where you're a professional, this is your job. This is Walt's job. He's on it every single day. This is going to be the truck he's on tomorrow and the day after that and the next year. I'm not here to beat the shit out of somebody. I'm here to do my job. And if I can do it by, here's a Nicorette, come enjoy. What's your name? Gladys? Gladys? Damn glad to meet you.
Yeah.
My name's Walt. What can we do here? And to me, that makes a lot more sense. And you can justify it. You can back it up. Now, is it the cool guy thing to do? I thought you knew all that ninjutsu crap, Walt, and you just talked her into holding your hand and crying for 15 minutes, and then she laid down like a puppy dog, and you got her some oxygen and took care of her.
Yep. Yeah, I did that exact thing yesterday. There was a behavioral health alert in oncology, which is a good 10-minute walk from the ER, but it goes out of the loudspeaker, and I was just close. We're down there. This guy is being treated. He some PTSD issues from prior incarceration. You know, he's in the oncology unit, so we all know why he's there. And you know, nurses are standing around. They're like, "I know he just was like really combative earlier. He's, you know, he won't go back in his room." And I'm like, "Hey, buddy." I'm like, "Hey, my name's Walt. What's your name?" He tells me, you know, and he's like, ah. I'm like, "Hey, man." I'm like, "It's tough when you hang out here at the nurses station because like they got work to do." I go, "Hey, man, just get back to your room, man." He's like, "I want to go to the store." I'm like, "Bro, this New Year's Day, there's no stores open." I'm like, "But I can't get you back to your room, and I get you something to drink, something to eat. These nurses be happy to help you out." You know, and I noticed like security coming down the hall, you know, we talked about before, you know, these are all state licensed police officers, and they just stand back and let me do my thing. And I'm like, "Hey, man," I go, "let me help you back to your room, brother. Let's just go back over there." I go, "What you," he had his phone with him. He had some headphones on. "What you listening to?" He's like, "Oh, nothing right now." I'm like, "All right, well," get him back to the room. He gets in bed, super chill. And the nurses are like, "Ah, it was so different with you." And I'm like, "No, could it be that I'm a guy that shows up? You know, it could be, right? But, you know, just man, just talking to somebody and just, you know, just creating like a little bit of that connection. Like, "Hey, man, I hear you, dude." Because one of the nurses, when I'm walking him back, he's like, "You know, he's got some PTSD from being incarcerated." I'm like, "I'd have some PTSD from that too, man. I can't imagine that'd be good, you know." But, I mean, but you know, to your point, you know, it's sometimes it's just taking a moment and trying to understand maybe where they're at the moment. Does it always work? No, I know, you know. I mean, but more often than not, it's surprising how if you slower your tone. You know, I always talk about tone, inflection, words. They all matter. You know, that's one of my big teaching points. You know, because the way you say something, you know, versus like, "Hey, you know, what's going on?" versus like, "Hey, man, calm down."
That
You know,
ain't
we all know how that goes.
Yeah. Anybody that's had a wife or a girlfriend knows how that goes.
Yeah,
And
I have
100% failure rate.
Yeah, I actually have a slide in my presentation, you know, where I'm like, "All right, what don't you do?" You know, and it's like, just tell them to calm down. And the next slide is like somebody putting Mentos in a Coke bottle, you know, it just explodes. And I'm like, this is angry patient is the Coke, you know, and it's like calm down is the Mentos, you know, and it always gets a laugh. But I mean, it makes a good point, man, because, you know, like you said, man, even if you try to like, "Hey, let's all I used that once with a nurse that I knew really well. And I was like, "Hey, let's just all calm down." And, you know, she went in the stratosphere, and it took me about 20 minutes to get back on her good side. That was years ago in Austin, but yeah, to your point, yeah, calm down. You know,
it's a shame. It's a shame that doesn't work. But you know, sometimes I think it also is like I've encountered professionals that weren't professional, and you just I just immediately take over in a very professional using tactical empathy immediately. You know, and I learned it as a recruiter. Again, I learned a lot about as a corrections officer, as a law enforcement officer, and then I went back into the Marine Corps and became a recruiter, and that's where it really became useful talking to people. And then, of course, you got 9 weeks of teaching you how to talk to people, where you have an end state you're trying to get to, et cetera. But, you know, sometimes you'd go in and the lady that's got to give you transcripts for the kid that's got to ship Monday for you to make missions. So it's like, you know, this is a big deal. And she's telling you to F off professionally and politely. "I don't have time for this." You know, I'm like, so how do you get those documents without alienating her? Because you also don't want to blow your relationship with the school. You don't want to go, "Per the Solomon Act, you will give me these documents or I'll shut down federal funding to the school," which you can. But that's the nuclear option. You do that, buddy, and you know you're going to get the. "Oh, I do."
Okay.
There
again.
Roger that, so they're going to, I say all that to say, what are you trying to accomplish? And then do that with this lady that I'm thinking about it at this high school. I'm kind of looking around her desk for a button to push, and I'm looking, I see that I'm watching how the other staff interacts with her. And it's very transactional, just like me. Right.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like, hey, Betty, give me this. Hey, Betty, give me that. And I'm just another guy like that. I'm not sure we're wearing dress blues, but I'm just that guy too. And I noticed like one of the pictures, and it looks like St. Augustine, Florida. I'm like, is that St. Augustine, Florida? Yes. Is that your grandbaby? Yeah, that's Margaret, whatever. I'm like, and now I can see she's slowly coming down. She's not there yet, but I'm getting there. Yeah. I can see you got a lot going on, Betty, and I don't want to be just another person here. Let me go hang out, and whenever you have an opportunity to, I'm not going to get an opportunity. Now we're pissed off again.
Yeah.
Not a problem. And I just go sit down, and you're still here. 10 minutes later, yes, ma'am. It's the Marine Corps. We got to make mission. We make Marines and we win battles. That's what we do. And I'm trying to make a Marine here. So, all right, come here. And then the next time I come with flowers. I come with a card.
Yes.
And
yes.
Next thing you know, she's got Marine Corps posters literally in her office. So are you trying to create true? I know this sounds bad. I love the word exploit, but it's loaded with a lot of negative stuff, but I'm going to say it. I'm trying to create a relationship for exploitation. Now she gets to exploit me, right? And I get to exploit my relationship with this woman here. So everybody wins. Reciprocal altruism. I am not necessarily altruistic, but I will reciprocate, right?
Yeah, and that's brilliant, man. I use that so often. It in so many ways, right? And sometimes it's just, I don't know, man. Like sometimes I'll just see somebody, like I'll see some woman, she's got a purse that I recognize the logo on. I'm like, oh, that's a cute blah, 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 and she said, oh, thank you. No, my husband didn't even notice that, and it's just, man, it takes so little effort just to create a little bit of rapport with somebody, but especially somebody you're going to be dealing with again and again and again. There's a particular charge nurse that I don't think she particularly cares for me. I mean, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea,
What?
but I know, right? But
I don't believe
I'm always
that.
like, but I'm always like, hey, what do you need? What can I do for you? And eventually I'll win her over. You know what I mean? And just is what it is, right? I don't know. Maybe she just doesn't like my look. Whatever it is, right?
She don't like good-looking guys. That's a problem.
That's what I'm saying. I got a face for radio, but but I always try to be even. I want to be an asset. I want to be a value add, right? And that's just my thing. But I want to be extra, with her. I'm like, hey, what do you need? Where can I go next? What do you need now, right? Or I'll just, and honestly, I just try to find work. Stuff needs to be, blankets need to be put in the warmer. IV stuff needs to be restocked. I'll just find work. And
I love that. And I'm gonna cut you off right there because listen to what he said. Walt could easily go, I got 30 freaking years, but I will put the blankets in the warmer. I'll restock the IVs. I just want to add value here. And I'm imagining for a charge nurse, they're like, man, you're a breath of fresh air. This is not beneath you. At all the things you've got, your fully loaded CV and resume are off the charts. And you're like, point and click, baby. Where do you need me? What can I do? I'm here to help.
Yep. And that was my number one thing, especially going into an atmosphere that I've never worked in before, especially going into a corporate environment versus an EMS. I mean, EMS is pretty much like any other first responder, law enforcement, public safety type job, where it's a lot of dudes and there's a lot of dude sort of humor, and you've got your females, but usually I'm with a male partner, and the occasional female. You don't want to be an asshole, obviously, right. But a corporate environment where it is predominantly female, I can't go in there and be like, Joe shit the rag man either way, right? But there's more decorum. It's not quite as laid back as, like, say, an EMS job's going to be. Not quite as bawdy, I guess would be a way to put it. Yeah, but man, I think about going in there and just but again, it's a learning environment for me, and like stuff needs to be done. And first and foremost, it drives me crazy when stock starts going down, because I'll go start an IV and I'm like, nobody's restocked the IV stuff. I'm like, well, that's going to be me, right? Or there's no blankets in the warmer, and like we hand those things out like hotcakes, I guess, for lack of a better term, right? But stuff needs to get done, and like, just why not do it, man? I'm getting paid actually good money with a wide scope of practice to learn something, to do some cool stuff, actually get to like talk and hang out with people, which usually I just take people to the hospital and see you later. I don't see you again unless you call the ambulance for some reason. It's me, but like, man, I actually get to do some cool stuff, have some cool conversations, have some heartwarming, I had a lady who she just found out her husband came in for chest pain. Oh, it's cancer, and she was outside the room. I'm like, and I just found out from the PA that diagnosed him. And I'm like, and that's got to be you go in for like just, chest pain. I think I pulled a muscle, and I'm like, hey, she just hugged me, and I'm like, hey, it's okay. Just gave her a big hug, man. And I got a little teary eyed, right? Because she doesn't know me. I haven't seen her before or since, but man, it was that moment where she just needed somebody to just hug for a minute. Yeah. I'm like, more than happy to do that, right?
I know. I say that a lot. I hugged more people in the handcuffs than I probably had to arm into.
That's good.
Because
that's
again,
good.
what is the overall objective I'm trying to achieve here? I mean, and at the time with judo and jiu-jitsu, man, let me hug you. let me get double underhooks.
Good point.
Sure, man. All day long. And if it goes weird, I'm already in.
Yeah.
I've already closed that distance for a hug. And I had an instance recently. I don't know that it's important to go into all of it, but a road rage incident came into my driveway. Did I tell you about that one?
Yeah, you did, man. But I think it bears repeating.
But it ended so this road rage ended up in my driveway on the country road, and they're screaming and the dogs are barking. I kind of put my handgun on and I walk out there, and because it's not ending and it's escalating, and these two men are getting closer. I get there and I'm wave, hey guys, what's going on? And he's like, this effing guy, they tried to kill me. And so finally I'm just getting closer and closer. Like, I hear you. And my hands are, and you can't see it if you listen to the podcast, but they're up in front of me for protection, but I'm not, I hear you. The hands are more like, I hear you. Almost in a moving, kind of thing. And as I got closer, hey, I hear you. And he's like, he could have killed my family. I'm like, I hear you. I've got my family right in that house right there. They mean the world to me. I completely understand you. And then when I got close to him, he just almost sprang and gave me this biggest hug, man, like we were long lost brothers. And I guess I had said, I hear you so many times, empathetically said it, and gave the kind of a soothing physical embrace visual to him. That man, he just hugged me. And he pointed at the guys like, and mumbled something and got in his car and drove away. So again, no shots fired, no pepper spray, no nothing. The guy that was trying to steal my catalytic converter here on my farm. It's been 6 years now, but the first thing was when he jumped up, don't shoot me, don't shoot me. I'm like, what's your name? That was the first words out of my mouth. Chris, I don't want to shoot you, buddy. Who you here with? I didn't say I wouldn't. I said I don't want to, But and I didn't scream. There's no MF or this. There's no da 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 da. It's just like, I don't need to be agitated. This guy is having some sort of excited delirium and drug induced, thing that he's going through because he's just tweaking his ass off. And I'm like, I'm not going to help things if I'm doing that. So it's like, let's do this, Chris. And of course, I got the handgun out. Let's do this. Let's get you back in your truck. How's that? Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I mean, I don't understand why people it's easy. We're human to let your emotions take over. Right.
Yeah.
And I want to comment on one other thing you said. You were talking about, and you were quoting somebody like, it rarely happens on your best day. The only time I had a suspect pull a gun and stick it in my face when I was a police officer was I had a Marine Corps Reserve drill that whole weekend. And we had literally came into Johnson City, Tennessee, boarded a C-130, flew to Camp Lejeune, did a couple of hits on some houses down there, their Mount facility, military operation urban training facility. I'd been up all freaking weekend. My shift would not give me Sunday night off, so I flew back in, cleaned weapons, turned them back in, literally got the cami off my feet, put my uniform on, and went to work. So I've been up like 2-3 days straight.
Yep.
And I'd contracted the flu or something when we were flying in a open air C-130 to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So I'm coughing and wheezing, and I'm tired, and I go to take a report where it should have just been somebody had knocked out this guy's window, just smashes his front window. So I'm coming in. I think I'm just going to take a report on this vandalism thing, right? And he invites us into his house, and I'm sitting on the couch, and my partner is over there, and I'm taking the report, and I'm barely awake. And I said, I don't understand. Why did he? It's not making sense to me. The story he's telling me, Walt. And I go, I don't understand this. Why would he smash your window out? He goes, all I did was this. And he reaches under the pillow on the couch and goes, points a 38 within literally 12 to 18 inches from my face, because we're sitting in like a sectional. So, and of course, my partner Chad is like, gun. He draws down on him, and the kid, the guy, not kid, he's a grown man. He freezes. He doesn't drop the gun. He's still got it pointed at me, and Chad's got his gun in him, and I'm just like, slam my writing material down on the ground. Now I'm just pissed off. There's no empathy now. I'm going to kill this guy if I have to. Now we've got two guns pointed at him, and he's just froze. I'm like, he introduced himself as Ozzy. I'll never forget it. That also tells you a lot about this person, right? Ozzy.
Yeah.
I go, Ozzy, you got a choice, my friend. You put that gun down, or you're gonna meet Jesus. What do you want to do, buddy?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this gun down. Fantastic. And I'm like, why would you do that? He goes, well, you just can't. You asked me what I did. I just did that, and he broke my window out. I'm like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
Break your window out too.
Yeah. You see the response you got from us.
Right. Johnny says people that show compassion and care can usually win over folks down on their luck. That's a fact. Brian is on. Yeah. Doug says, excellent discussion. Got to run. Happy New Year, everyone. Stay safe and train hard. God bless you, brother.
Yeah, John.
Let's see here. Johnny says, was that the incident that led to you putting together a bump on the night belt? Yeah, man, it was, because at the time, I didn't have anything like that. I had my Glock 17 with a TLR2 on it, and it was in a holster, so I just kind of slid the belt around it, and then I put a headlamp over my neck because I think I'm going to change a tire, because that's what happens out here on this country road. Mm-hmm. You haven't been to my house yet, have you, Walt?
No, not yet.
Yeah, you need to come up, man. And I thought that's all it was, and of course it wasn't. He had parked his truck and walked down my gravel road to do his thing. But yeah, man, and now it's easy. I just click and go, or I hunker down inside. So there are options. But guess what, man? Each option comes with its own set of variables.
Absolutely.
I did the hunker down inside one time, and it ended up, instead of being able to take care of it away from my house where my wife and kids are not involved, it ends up on my porch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that didn't work out. I don't want him not to breach my door to just get deal with this freaking clown. But anyway, man, it's that's another thing. There's so many variables. It's hard to,
It does, man. And that's one of the things when you and I've talked about it before ad nauseum, there's always context to every situation, and there's always it depends,
The people don't like hearing it just depends. And it looks like we lost Walt again. And that's part of where you live in the county, man, like Walt and I do. I finally got on they offered fiber optic out here in the county. So now I'm on fiber optic. And as you can see, this drops. But Walt is coming back in. Here we go. Yeah.
Every time it goes out, I'm pontificating, and it's amazing. But
you're giving out golden nuggets, man. We're missing
golden nuggets. Yeah, but man, what was I saying? Jeez, it was in my head. I don't know.
Well, we're talking about variables now, and how a lot of You know,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
want
yeah.
to, if this, then that, you know, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. And there's no one answer. There's no specific blueprint or roadmap I can give you. I can give you some ideas, it gives you some concepts, and you know as well as I do. You know, being teaching and you and all the things that you teach. You know, and you've got a wealth of knowledge, but every context is different. Every situation's different. You know, and it depends. It depends. You know, and I think that's one of the biggest things. I wish I could just give like, hey, this is what's going to happen here, here, and here. You know, and that's why a lot of the
It's a
things I
thinking
teach,
man's game.
it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And it's letting go of that ego, that pride,
Mhm.
and just, and for me, I get more of a boost of like talking my way out of things than I do like fisticuffing it out of things. If
Sure.
it comes to that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But, like I love the verbal judo, man.
Well, my brother is I think he's watching us, and Jeff and I went to the range this morning with some other folks and did our weekly 2.5 hour training session. And we were talking about the book, The Game by Neil Strauss. You familiar with that book?
No, I have.
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Have you read it?
I have read it. It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
So those that
It,
don't know, it's Neil Strauss, who is a very, very, very famous writer, was a Rolling Stone reporter, etc. And he thought it would be kind of cool to infiltrate a group of pickup artists, and he does, and it's life changing for him in a lot of really important ways. But I'm saying that because it's a very similar situation. I mean, they are using communications to pick up a girl and date her or do whatever boys and girls do together. But I think there's that skill set is very similar, like
yeah,
recruiting. And at the same time, man, I'm just gonna fight. I'm gonna go kinetic on everybody. Okay, great. Well, when you're double locked inside of a pod with 48 violent inmates, you can't fight them all, brother. Matter of fact,
yep,
you'd be lucky to fight one or two, but
yep,
you can't
absolutely.
handle the whole pod. So you're going to have to use what's between your ears and this little slit beneath your nose to try to get you out of some problems.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
at the same time, you can't appear weak, right?
It's a dance.
It is a freaking tightrope to have the command and control to get the things done without violence, without force, without calling in the SORT team to try to solve your problem, and at the same time maintain your professionalism, maintain your decorum, all that kind of stuff, and get them to do things that nobody in society's ever been able to get them to do. Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think there's a lot of, and it's the same thing for. I think it's probably a good segue to talk about what happened with you recently, where you had to
Yeah,
use
absolutely.
force and your position as basically as a paramedic working inside an emergency room. I don't hear security anywhere in that, and yet that's kind of what you ended up having to do.
Yeah, man. It's interesting because there have been two other incidents. I wasn't on shift at the time, but I was like, "What? Really?" And so it was interesting for my situation. We had a patient who came out of a room. Now, this person was there for IVC's involuntary commitment, right? So they can't leave by law, but they're also being treated. So they're not in the behavioral health area, which is more secure. There's key card in and out. They are very set in the way that they can get in and out, right? It's very controlled, right? But this person was in an actual treatment room. So the person comes out of the room, pulled out the IV, comes out of the room, and I'm just walking towards the med room to pull some medications for the area that I'm in. Got my readers down. I'm like, hey, what? No. And I'm like, hey, 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 right? Compressed fence. And, it's ingrained in me now, like, hey, hey, hey. No. And just, as soon as I did, get away from me. And she, I got to push my glasses up into my eye. So I had a little spot there. You saw it before, right?
Oh
Pushing
yeah,
my eye.
yeah.
Right. And so and all happened in I don't know, a couple of seconds, right? So at the time, I just hand grab, right, just hobud basically, just hand
Mhm.
it off. So the person goes to pull back, and I'm like, I cannot let the person hit the floor and smack her head. Now, side note, the person's like 95 to 100 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
And some guys I talked to earlier, good friends Wes and Dan from Rally Point ISR Solutions, kind of this thing came up, and like, I'm like, you know, could you or should you? It's like, yeah. Could I? Yeah. Should I? Absolutely not. Right. Because,
Hmm.
to smash a 100-pound person, I'm 220 pounds, you know, yeah, I mean, weight advantage already. Right. That's
100%.
one thing. Right. But with training, so when they go to fall, they lose balance because they pull away. Let them down easy. I don't want them to hit their head. I don't want a head injury because that's a whole other kettle of fish, right? Just go down with them, right? Gift wrap the arm, knee on belly, grab one of the pants, the opposing pants leg, and
Hmm.
just control them, basically, right? And like we talked about before, not a traditional jujitsu. You're going to suffer knee on belly. It's
Hmm.
a very light. I just want to keep your hips pinned to that ground, right? Till we
Hmm.
can get control. And like I've talked about before, they're going to go from a patient to an assailant back to a patient again, and they've got to be treated, right? And this is one
Yes.
of the big things that I harp on in my coursework is, you know, you're going to have to be able to titrate to affect the amount of force that you use, and that's also going to be titrating the amount of anger that you can. Could I have gotten mad because this person smacked me in the face? Yeah, absolutely, right. But
Hmm.
I'm just like, hey, all the way through the thing, hey, 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 it's okay. It's okay. Look, just get you back in the room. Get you back. And they're still yelling, screaming. Our security guys come because again, it happens super quick. They're not. We usually have 2 to 3 guys on duty during the day. They can't be everywhere at one time.
No.
They get called. They come. They take over. I go. Look at your eye. It's fine. Like I'm so sorry that happened. I'm like, hey man, this, believe me, this is. I mean, obviously my nose is a little crooked from many a day of boxing and
Yeah.
Muay Thai. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, this face ain't. Is not averse to getting punched occasionally. But that was the situation. Just nice, easy control the person. Don't let. I mean, they're there for medical treatment. They're not there to get their ass beat, right?
Thank
And
you.
I'm certainly not
Right.
going to be the one that's going to administer that. You know what I mean? And I mean,
Wow. There's no bragging rights for Walt
no,
with everything to beat the shit out of some 95, 100-pound woman.
yeah, yeah,
That-
and
It's
especially one that's there
ridiculous.
for, obviously there's mental issues and or drug issues,
Yeah.
right? And so, well, one, I'm probably going to get fired. Two, I'm probably going to get a civil suit, right? All these
Hmm.
other things, but just from a moral, ethical, legal standpoint. But first and foremost, the moral standpoint, right? This person didn't wake up that morning going, "I'm going to kick Walt's ass." I mean, I'm sure there might be
Yeah.
some people who do, but by the same token, right? They're there for medical treatment. If they get rowdy, they get aggressive, whatever it is, we just handle that. Right. And
Yeah.
like I said, we titrate to affect the amount of force needed or, used to get them safely back in a position where they can be treated.
I I love, you're using the phrase titrate. So, and that's where you're taking somebody slowly off medication or whatever. That's the way I
Mm-hmm.
understand it to be.
Yep.
And you're right. I'm titrating the level of, we call it the pain faucet, but it's
Yes.
essentially the same thing. Your conduct is going to dictate how much, pain you get, how much knee
Mm-hmm.
from my knee you get, whether I spear you with this knee or I gently place it on your belly to control you. That the gift wrap and knee on belly by far and away one of my favorite positions. And
Absolutely.
Todd Fox, who I've had on the show multiple times. I've read his
Love
books.
Todd.
He's love Todd, great dude, man. But he's a huge fan of that as well because as the knee on belly, it keeps you up above sight line. You're not on your back. You're up. I can disengage and stand in a nanosecond.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic position. And if you've got the right hand wrapped, it's very difficult. It's impossible for them to reach a handgun if they've got it in their
Yep.
waist. Now, that left hand is still free, and you got to deal with that. And there's several ways you can deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
The way I find best is I'm always testing for compliance. You got them wrapped up. You got knee on belly. Do me a favor. Put your hand palm down on the ground. Palm down. Palm down. Thank you. And now they're going to be rewarded with a little less of my 220 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not giving up positional dominance. Didn't say that, did I? You didn't
No.
say that. But you're gonna be rewarded with a little less of the pain. And it's why, and I think pain compliance techniques got a bad rap somewhere along the way. I think PPCT got watered down,
Yeah. That's
you
what I've
know,
heard.
but in reality, it was not a bad program when it first come out. My brother and I both were introduced to that at the sheriff's department, and I thought it was pretty good. And then over the years, each department's kind of like, well, this is really not within policy. This is not within policy. So do these things. I'm like, well, you took away
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff, like the rear naked choke. Not that it ever was part of the PPCT curriculum, but the lateral vascular neck restraint. How many lives would be saved if you let police officers use that before they strike?
Absolutely.
I was at jiu-jitsu class not long ago, observing this one guy who's a new teacher in town. I just want to kind of come in and watch what he's doing. And of course, he's got 5-year-olds rolling around putting LVNRs on people like it's cool.
Absolutely.
And guess what? Every 5-year-old stood up, brushed himself off, and walked out of there that day. You gotta let them have it.
Yep.
Tony says, according to Kyle Rittenhouse's prosecutor, sometimes you just have to take an ass whooping. No, not really. Jeff said, and of course, I mean, it's like, I'm not, but from a crowd, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's a whole show that I've never done. That is, the Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
You talk about judicious, beautiful use of force.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in combat, an entire Fox Company, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines just lit these 2 dudes up, man, and fire tows and rockets and everything they could shoot at this people. Whereas Kyle Rittenhouse, he was like a surgeon that day with his AR. So God bless that young man.
Yeah,
Jeff says, "Yeah, I'm on here, brother. Great show today. Appreciate that."
Yeah, Jeff.
So going back to your incident. So again, it was a nothing burger, but I think to me, it's an example of the viability of your curriculum, of your level of training, of your maturity, of your judgment, of your professionalism and then immediately switch back into provider mode and get her the help you need. And as you were talking, I was thinking of, I'm not going to say his name because he has not given me permission to tell the story. But the people that know him will know what it is. There's I don't know that it's famous. It's famous and probably in where it happened at. There's a guy waving an AK-47. He's having a mental break, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a full-time SWAT team. So the full-time SWAT team rolls out there because they're just like, they're on call, ready to go. So they roll in, they set up the Bearcat, they got a position, and my friend's got his AR on the guy. They're trying to talk to him. I think he fired a shot in the air at some point, whether it was before they got there or not. So now we know he's got a loaded magazine. This isn't, and he's like, I don't want to shoot this guy. It's going to be sad, but I can't let him point the muzzle at anybody. And so far he's not. He's got it up and he's talking gibberish. But he said, I looked at the house next door and I see a woman look out and I see her 2 kids below her look through the window, and then they close it like that. And that kind of caught his eye, and he starts heading toward the door, that house with the woman, her children. And he was like, yep, boom, shoots him right in the back. And that's what I'm talking about. Until that moment, it's, I don't kill this guy. That's sad. This guy's he's having some sort of break. But the minute he's now, it's easy day. It's an easy decision to make.
Yeah.
And the same thing with this young lady. If she would have pulled out the steak knife, and it'd be like, all right, game on. Let's deal with that too.
Yeah.
And once we fix that, we'll fix your broken arm too. But
Yes. Yeah, and again, it always comes down to context, and it depends. And there's so many variables, and I talked about it. And I thought that was a great conversation we had on I got some great feedback on it, because I think there were a lot of great lessons learned from that for me. And it was great talking it out with you because you get my mindset. Because the first thing I was like, hey, I'm a professional. I'm going to take care of this business, quickly, succinctly, speed, surprise, violence of action, and do it in a gentle enough way that they're not going to get injured, right? That being said, like you said, like what if a knife comes out, if some other weapon comes out, that's a whole other different conversation, right? And then like you said, we deal with that too, right? But letting, again, it's something we talked about to death, but it needs to be, is if you let pride, ego, or anything, or emotion especially, dictate your actions or how you handle those things, man, it's not going to be it's never going to be a good outcome. I don't care what decision you're making. If you're making it from an emotional point of view, it's not going to be a good decision.
No, I obviously agree with you. And that's the situation there. For one, let me back up. We always say surprise, speed, and speed, surprise, and balance of action. Really, it should be surprise, speed, and balance of action, because I have to have the element of surprise. If not,
True.
Yeah. So They are in some order there. So yeah, yeah, I like the fact that you took a level of care to not let her head get hurt. She didn't
Yeah.
care about you. She didn't care
No,
about your head.
no, she did not.
She didn't. And if she had something she could have stabbed you with, maybe she would have. You know what I mean? We'll never know, I guess. But I think that is a testament to you, and I hope a lot of people hear that. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have got worse, because it obviously can escalate and de-escalate. And another thing about most civilians that have never been in this line of work is they don't understand scaling force.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rory Miller wrote a book on it I thought it does a really good job, as good as any I've ever seen, for talking civilians through the idea of scaling force up and scaling force down. Now, obviously it can go straight to lethal bang. Or it can start with a harsh word all the way up right before the bang, and then end up holstering and taking them into custody. That's happened innumerable amounts of times with everybody that's ever worn a shield or a badge. But that's something that a lot of civilians don't grasp, and I wish they could. Maybe that would be really great for their CCW curriculum. Let's talk for just a second about scaling force. Not everything's a shooting problem. And not everything's, well, I'm going to back up here, because as we've been talking, and this is something Tony pointed out about, as far as the fighting in the back of an ambulance, that's a really unique problem, because it is confined space combat, right?
Absolutely.
Moving, and you've got all that stuff in there. And if you lose that fight in the back of a moving ambulance, brother, that could be bad, So
yeah, we've had
tell
some
me
medics
about
that
that.
went back before. Man, it's a very interesting and novel environment in a lot of ways, because you're in it's bigger than a car. It's a bigger cube, right? It's just a much bigger cube, and you can use that cube to be a force multiplier. We had a medic years ago who he's got this D1 football player, solid 300 pounds, big guy, puts him on the stretcher. Everything's cool, and a lot of medics will always say, hey, he was cool till he wasn't. Okay, a lot of times there are pre-event indicators that you didn't necessarily pick up on, but we had a smaller medic. He's probably about 160, 170 pounds. He's sitting in the captain's chair, which is directly behind the stretcher. Now, what we found out, like working in this, that captain's chair in the back is a hole that you're in that's hard to get out of. It's a lot easier if you're sitting on the bench seat beside the stretcher, which is usually when you're treating the patient. But the medic was just trying to so maybe, I don't know, I didn't even get the gist if he was just trying to not be, or he's just putting the guy. So if you're in the captain's chair, you're looking at the patient's head and down them. Now
You're almost like north-south.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
if they're sitting up, you really can't see what they're doing with their hands. Patient, big guy, drugs and alcohol on board, D1 athletic guy, 21, 22 years old, plays football regularly, D1 guy. So he's like, how fast are we going? And Mac's like, I don't know, 60 miles an hour. This kid's like, I'm getting out. Pop, pop, pop. Just hits all the seat belts, gets up. The medic's like, oh, medic gets up. Right. So you have to understand, in the ambulance, right, you have the stretcher, right? You have a bench seat here, or some have an action chair, or just one chair, and there's action shelves on each side that you treat the patient. This one had a bench seat, right? So a long seat, or in the captain's chair. Now there's a net where the bench seat is. And that, if the stop suddenly, the medic doesn't fly off the bench seat into the stairwell of the side door, right? So this football player just starts wailing on the medic,
Oh, jeez.
So now this football player is trying to drag the medic out the back. Partner notices what's going on. Now in the interim, if they notice what's going on, of course they slam the brakes on, because that's the worst thing you can do. It, but it is what it is. The medic had wrapped his arm through the net, trying to keep from getting pulled out the back of the ambulance. Does that make sense? Right.
So this, just so I'm clear, so if I'm understanding the captain's chair, I'm at the top of his head.
Yeah, top of his head, and you look down to
and he had
to
pulled
the back doors.
all the way back to the back.
So if you imagine in the ambulance, right, you have the back doors, you have the side door, you have the stretcher here, heads up here, and the captain's chair's up here at the head.
Oh, he's going out the side door?
Yeah, so now he's trying to pull him out the back door.
Oh,
right? So he's trying to pull him out the back door, because that just seems like the most logical, because that, I guess that was what he saw. So so the medic wraps his arm through the netting to hold on to get pulled out from getting pulled out the back. So when the partner slams on the brakes, they both fly. So the medic actually pivots around that spot where he's got the thing, where he's got his arm through the netting. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Guy slams into him, it gets that action shelf to the back of the ambulance. Right. So this knocks this guy nearly unconscious. They hit the brakes. So now the football player is just dragging this guy out the back, opens the doors. They fall out the back. Medic's unconscious. Partner had called PD. PD shows up. They arrest the guy. Right. So, but medic was off the truck for, I don't know, I want to say 6 months or so. Right. So, concussion, obviously. Right.
Sure.
Pretty beat up. So one of the things that we found is, so you think of about the back of a truck, right? A couple of things, and I'll give, I'm famous for, I'll give this course to people, or I'll tell them, because having the information and actually having someone teach it to you is, I think, two different things. But one of the things that we found, when you're on that stretcher, you have buckles across your shin, buckles across your waist, and there's usually two belts that come over the shoulders and buckles right about the sternum, mid sternum, right? And most everybody goes for that, either that top one, or they go for that waist buckle, right? And those are one of our pre-contact indicators. Another one is taking the pulse ox off, pulling off the blood pressure cuff, right? All right, they're getting antsy, right? So as soon as they go for that buckle, and now 9 times out of 10, there's always an outlier, but 9 times out of 10, we ride in cars and we have a waist belt, and that's where we go for. So they always go for that waist belt. I'll tell you what's interesting is, one of the things you can do as a medic is you can flip that buckle upside down. If they're drunk or they're on drugs, right? It makes it hard to find that button, right? Because it's usually just seat belts, usually, right? Or it's like little clips. What's interesting is you can get that middle buckle off your waist off, and I can still control you really, really well. If you get the ones off of your shins off first, you have way more leverage. Because think about it. Now you can bring your legs up. Now you can base up. You can push, right? If they get those bottom buckles out, or they get their legs out from underneath there, that's when it becomes more of a tussle, right? That top one, not as big a deal. The waist one, definitely not as big a deal. What's interesting about most ambulances now, they make you put the shoulder straps on, right? So one of the things we do is that gift wrap, because as soon as they go for that buckle, they go with both hands most times for that waist belt. 2 on 1, whip it around, gift wrap it, and you press into them. Now what I do, and now if let's say it's somebody who's way bigger than I am, I can take my foot and push against that wall where the bench seat is, and I can exert a ton of force. I can almost turn them, and especially if I bring this arm up and index on that shoulder, because it'll be their left arm, right? Because that's how most ambulances are set up. You're treating the patient from the left-hand side. It's hard for them to even get that right hand to do anything, because you can just, and like Craig Douglas talks about in the vehicle, man, you're the force multiplier pressing. I'm leg pressing against that wall.
Yes.
And you can just, and if those shoulder buckles are still there, doesn't include the airway, but it sure fucking rubs against your neck really hard, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's almost even worse. Now, if they don't have the shoulder straps on, you almost turn them and take their back, which is still a good position to be in. But the way we've done it, I mean, I've had a 110-pound girl control me on that stretcher because we timed it, until you can get that vehicle to a stop and your partner can come around and says, can she hold it forever? Maybe not.
No.
One of the things we found is, maybe if it's someone with longer hair, usually a female with longer hair, if they can maybe get that right arm and grab some hair, maybe. But a lot of times what we've done is once you get that gift wrap, once you feed that in and get that gift wrap, right? I usually put my head up above theirs. I can still see what's going on, but I want to be above them a little bit, and just I'll use that wall with my leg and just press into them. And it's not comfortable. I've got some great videos of us doing it, and you can put it on fast and quick before they have time to react. Now we've got some video too of where they get their legs out from under that one. So one of the things I always tell medics is make sure that belt across their shins is a little tighter. If they seem antsy, maybe just a touch tighter, because if they get their legs out, that gives them more room to move. Can you still control them? Yeah, but it gives them a little more leverage.
Now, that leg pressing off the wall is great, whether you're in a Honda or anything. You know,
Hmm.
if you're grappling inside of a confined space, leg pressing somebody into the wall is a fantastic thing, and it will buy you some time. Not true, you're not controlling their hands or some all kinds of things that's not working good, but you know, even another thing you mentioned is long hair. I I'm not a striker. You know, I'm not. I know how to throw a 6 punch combo and all that kind of stuff, and taught striking as a close combat instructor and blah blah blah. I am not a striker. So my hands are for grabbing and grappling. And
Hmm.
if I need to grab your hair, if I need to grab your shirt, if I need to grab the seatbelt you're using, I'm
Hmm.
going to do any and all of it.
Crossface.
Cross face, brother. Exactly. So, yeah, I'll tell you, I would love to sit in your curriculum. I've never been, you know, done your job as far as like an EMS paramedic
Yeah,
kind
I'd
of
love to do
guy.
it.
But yeah, that's very, very fascinating
Yeah.
to me.
There are some nuances to the aspect of that gift wrap too. A lot of
Mhm.
times, now this brings in a little bit of the wrestling aspect because when I, so if they're sitting there and they go for that middle seat belt, the one across their waist, right? That's my go time, right?
Yep.
Automatic 2-on-1, almost that baseball bat control. But I come in low because I want to use my chest. It's a big person, right? Am I gonna be able to muscle that arm around? Maybe, but if I got my weight on it and I press it around, and once I get it past that certain point, right, I can just come back index on that shoulder and just wrap that, just bring that
Exactly.
arm into place, wrist tie, right? And so one of the great things about this, because we had our docs vetted, right? There's no compromise of airway.
That's right.
There's no way that I'm gonna be able to cut this because it's not a choke. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not even
You're talking about a gift wrap's not a choke.
yeah, not a
Yep.
choke at all, right? They can still breathe. Now, is it comfortable? No,
I
right?
think
Because
another
especially when we're
term,
going on.
oh my God, no, not comfortable at all.
Yeah,
Really bad. And there is a pretty easy escape from it, believe it or not. I'm sure you know it, but
yeah,
most people do not know it.
most
Most
people do not.
jujitsu guys I've rolled with have no idea how to get out of that. It can, and if you're like, I don't know what the gift wrap is, some schools call it, I think, twisting arm side control.
Hmm.
It may go by a few different labels, but it's a fantastic position. And you can turn it into a choke using your other hand.
Yeah.
It comes inside and almost like does a paper cutter kind of thing on their
Hmm.
carotids. Fantastic maneuver, very safe, great control position that you used on that girl. I highly recommend it. I've had you on here about an hour and 20 minutes already. Well,
Love it,
it's
man.
flown by.
Absolutely.
Where can people follow you? Where can you listen to your outstanding podcast? Tell us where
Oh,
we can find you.
I appreciate that. And the Distinguished Savage podcast, there's also the distinguishedSavage.com. There's a blog, there's merch. I'm working on a couple of blog posts, actually, one on why paramedics should work in the ER, just to kind of get an idea, because it's
Mm.
a whole other world. There's also links to the latest episodes, that kind of thing. You can find me on Spotify, all podcast platforms, except for YouTube, because YouTube's, like, I don't know. To buy cameras and learn editing is just beyond my bandwidth right now. So, but all podcast platforms, the big ones are Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. You were saying that you're writing a blog post about how all paramedics should work in an ER. Is that correct?
Hmm.
Me and my brother, again, Jeff and I were having this conversation this morning on the way to the range that everybody should, before you go on the road as a police officer, you should have to do corrections,
Yeah,
minimum of 1 year.
I can see
Because
that.
again, you won't be going to the tool belt quickly. I think
Hmm.
a lot of people are going to the tool belt quickly. You're going to use between your ears, you're going to use your mouth, you're going to use your body in a way that's helping you. And another thing, it help you talking about de-escalate. I can't go. I would be stupid to try to fight an inmate in a pod full of 48 dudes. That's a good way to get killed.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much crossover onto the street. You've already worked around scumbags all day long, 8, 10 hours a day,
Yep.
you know, month after month after month. So that by the time you get out there, you're like, I know that you probably have relationships with them from when they were
Yeah,
in county
absolutely.
because it's a revolving door.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have the frequent flyer program. I'm sure when you're in
Yep.
Austin, I'm taking the same people again and again.
Oh, yeah, man. And I see the same guys at jail over and over and over.
Absolutely, it's the same freaking thing. It's part of their life. It's not part of mine and your life to go to jail all the time. It is part of their life. Their cousins are there. Their brothers are there. People they dropped out of high school with are in there. people they stole a car with are in there. So again, you try to whip Pookie's ass and not know that Ray, you know, his old celly is now going to come in and get you.
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm so glad you came on today, Walt. It's been a hell of a time, and we need to do it again.
I always love talking to you. You know, and I have great conversations both on and off air, so to speak, man. And I'm proud to be an American Warrior Society member, coin holder. And man, it's dude, I just appreciate the time to connect with your audience because you know I think we have a lot of crossover with each other, man. But dude, it's just I love you and I always love having chats with you.
I love you, brother. Be safe out there, man. Guys and gals in Warrior Nation, remember the fight is coming. Be ready.